At dinner, my husband's ex looked him dead in the eye and said, "I can give you a baby if you want, Sean, because your wife isn't capable of it." He turned to me. Sean, my husband of 14 years. He wasn't looking at me with horror or disgust. He was curious, expecting, waiting for me to just sit there and take it. Instead, I smiled, a cold, tight smile that didn't reach my eyes, and I whispered, "Follow your heart." The next morning, I called my lawyer. But what happened after that? Nobody saw it coming. The words just dripped from Michelle's mouth, all casual, like she was offering to lend us her stupid designer handbag, not proposing to torpedo my entire marriage right there in my own dining room. "I can give you a baby if you want," she cooed, "because your wife isn't capable of it." She said it while staring at my husband, Sean, with this gross, theatrical sympathy, her perfectly manicured hand slithering across the antique mahogany table to touch his arm. My table, the one I'd spent an hour polishing. I had cooked for 3 hours. I made the short ribs he loved, the ones that take all day. I set out our wedding china, the ridiculously expensive stuff from Bloomingdale's that my mother insisted we register for. I opened a $200 bottle of Napa Cab, and I had told myself over and over that I was being mature, that I was being evolved by hosting my husband's college ex-girlfriend. I was proving we were secure, that our marriage, our 14-year history, was so solid that we could welcome his past without feeling the slightest threat. What a joke. What a straight-up delusional idiot I was. Before we get into the nuclear-level revenge I was about to plan, I have to ask you something. You're here, watching this, listening to my world fall apart. Do you know what it feels like to be completely blindsided, to have your trust shattered into a million pieces? This channel is for survivors. It's for people who refuse to be victims. If you believe in taking back your power, then hit that subscribe button. It's free. It's your way of saying you're not going to just sit there and take it. Are you really going to just keep watching without joining? Think about that. If you're not subscribing, you have to have a reason. Go to the comments right now and tell me why you're choosing to stay on the outside. Looking in, I'll be reading. Now let's get back to the ambush, because that's what this was. This wasn't security. This was a setup, a carefully planned, perfectly executed hit job. And I had provided the venue and the catering. Sean didn't defend me. That's the part that echoes. That's the detail that stopped the world from spinning. He didn't immediately shut her down. He didn't tell her she was out of line, disrespectful, or just plain nuts. No. He turned. He turned and looked at me. His face had this expression I couldn't pin down. It was somewhere between, interesting, and expectation. He was waiting to see how I would react to being professionally humiliated in my own home over a meal I cooked. In that one, frozen, silent moment, every excuse I had made for him over the last 6 months shattered like glass. The late nights at the office in his financial district building, the emergency client calls that made him walk into the other room and close the door, the way his whole face lit up, genuinely lit up, whenever Michelle's name came up. This wasn't some innocent, "oh, we're just old friends" thing. This was a betrayal, a long con that had been building for months, and I had been too busy, too trusting, or maybe just too damn scared to see it, until Michelle, with her fake tan and her thirsty eyes, shoved it right in my face. So I looked at my husband, the man I thought I'd grow old with, and I smiled, and I said the 3 words that would end our marriage. "Follow your heart." He looked relieved. Can you believe that? Relieved. He thought I was giving him a hall pass. He thought I was giving him permission. What I was really giving him was enough rope to hang himself. And I was handing myself a front row ticket to watch him do it. A ticket to watch me take back everything he thought was his. But to understand how I, Jane, a partner at a Boston marketing firm, ended up at that dinner table serving my own humiliation on wedding china, I have to go back. Back 6 months, back to when I still believed Sean and I had built something real, something that could survive, back when I was still naive enough to think 14 years of marriage meant more than just a joint mortgage and a shared Netflix queue. Our life looked perfect. From the outside, we were #had goals. We had this gorgeous money pit of a Victorian in Newton just outside the city. We'd spent weekends stripping wallpaper, fighting over Faro ball paint swatches, and hosting barbecues in the backyard that our friends posted on Instagram. We were the poster children for making it. Sean was deep in corporate finance, a VP gunning for partner, pulling down an insane salary. I ran client relations for a high-end marketing firm downtown. I was good at it. I loved it. We were a power couple. Our routines were locked in. He'd hit the expensive gym at 5 a.m. I'd take our golden retriever for long walks on Sunday mornings. We'd alternate cooking. We watched the same HBO dramas. Our friends were always telling us how solid we were. You guys are so lucky, they'd say. It's so rare to see a couple still so connected. Connected, right. What they didn't see, what I didn't want to see, was that our solidity was just silence. We had stopped having real conversations. We talked about logistics, who was picking up the dry cleaning, what we were doing with his parents on Saturday, but we didn't talk about feelings. Our intimacy had become scheduled, a chore, something to check off the list before we went to sleep. We were two people living in the same house, performing the roles of happy married couple so well that we even fooled ourselves. We were a brand, not a marriage. The cracks started years ago. About 3 years in, I was diagnosed with severe endometriosis. I remember sitting in that sterile office at Mass General, the paper crinkling under me, holding Sean's hand, while the doctor, in her clinical, sympathetic voice, laid out our limited options. The treatments would be brutal, aggressive, and there were zero guarantees. Sean squeezed my fingers. "We'll figure it out, Janie," he said. "It's us against the world. Kids aren't the only way to have a life." And I believed him. God, I needed to believe him. So we tried. We tried for 18 months, 18 brutal, soul-crushing months. My life became a calendar of hormone injections, invasive procedures, and crushing disappointments. My body felt like a science experiment that kept failing, month after month. After the 4th failed IVF cycle, we were sitting in the parking garage at the clinic, the silence deafening. We just looked at each other, and we agreed to stop. Sean said he couldn't watch me go through it anymore. He said he'd rather have me, healthy and present, than keep chasing a ghost that might never materialize. He said it with so much conviction, I actually felt grateful, relieved. We went home that night, opened a bottle of wine, and talked about all the things we could do without kids. We'd travel. We'd take that trip to Japan. We'd buy a place on the Cape. We'd focus on our careers. We'd be free. And for a while, it worked. We poured all that energy into renovating the house. We took weekend trips to Newport and Vermont. We hosted amazing dinner parties. We became that couple. The fun ones. The ones who proved you didn't need a 2.5 kid picket fence life to be happy. But underneath all that activity, something had broken. The grief we were supposed to share. It didn't bring us closer. It pushed us apart. Sean got quieter, more distant. He stayed later and later at the office. I threw myself into my work, into my friendships, filling all the empty spaces in our life with stuff, with being busy. I told myself this was normal. This is just what long-term marriage is. The passion fades and it turns into this stable, mature partnership. We still cared about each other. We were a good team. The love was just quieter. I convinced myself that stability was better than passion, that it was enough. And then Michelle freaking Evans walked back into Sean's life and set a bomb off under every single lie I'd been telling myself. He mentioned her so casually. It was March, 6 months before the dinner. He said he'd run into an old friend at a gallery opening in the Sowa district, someone he dated back at Boston College before we met. "Michelle Evans," he said. "Remember her?" "Probably not. She just moved back from London, doing some consulting." He said they'd grabbed coffee. "Just to catch up," he said, so breezy, so innocent, that I barely even registered it. I asked what she was like. He laughed. "Oh, you know, passionate, a little unstable, always making dramatic decisions." I should have paid attention. I should have seen the red flag. He volunteered way too much detail. Over the next few weeks, her name started popping up, constantly. "Oh, Michelle recommended this new restaurant in the Seaport. We should try it." "Michelle's actually consulting on a project at my firm. Small world, right? She has some really interesting takes." Michelle reminded me of this hilarious story from college. And he'd laugh. A real, genuine laugh. The kind I hadn't heard from him in years. Each little mention by itself was nothing. A text, a coffee, a memory. But altogether, it was a pattern I was working overtime to ignore. Sean started checking his phone, all the time, at dinner, while we were supposed to be watching a movie. He'd smile at the screen, then quickly lock it and put it face down if I looked over. He started working late almost every weekend. He bought new clothes. Not just work clothes, but expensive jeans, new shoes. He started paying attention to his hair. He'd come home from work buzzing, talking a mile a minute about his day, but the energy was for someone else. By the time he was actually talking to me, the light was gone. He was tired. He was drained. I saw all of it, every last bit, and I explained it all away. He's having a midlife crisis. He's just excited about his work. It's healthy for him to have his own friends. I shoved that sick, twisting feeling in my gut so far down I could barely feel it, because admitting something was wrong meant admitting our perfect marriage was a failure. It meant I'd have to do something about it. And I was a coward. Then, he suggested it. Hey, Michelle has been dying to meet you. She feels weird reconnecting with me and not, knowing my wife. We should have her over for dinner. He sold it as a sign of our strength, our maturity. It'll show her how solid we are, he said. It sounded so reasonable, so healthy. So I agreed, even as every alarm bell in my body was screaming at me to run. I spent 2 days getting ready for that stupid dinner. I bought the best ingredients from Wegmans. I planned a 4-course meal. I set the table with the wedding china. I told myself this was my territory. This was my chance to show this passionate, unstable woman that I was the one who had built a real life with him. She was just a ghost from his past. I was his future. I picked out my outfit, a simple, elegant black dress, confident, unbothered. As I was lighting the candles, I honestly believed I was being the bigger person. I thought I was rising above petty jealousy. I had no idea I was just setting the stage, arranging the props for my own public execution. Michelle arrived at 7 p.m. on the dot. I heard her laugh before I even saw her, that low, throaty laugh. She and Sean were already bantering at the door, a new rhythm to their conversation that I wasn't a part of. He opened the door, and she breezed in. She was wearing a red silk dress that looked like it had been sewn onto her body. She was all confidence and expensive perfume that filled the whole entryway. Sean hugged her, and the hug lasted just a few seconds too long. His hands rested on the small of her back with a familiarity that made my throat tighten. She finally turned to me, her smile a little too bright, a little too practiced. "You must be Jane," she said, drawing out my name. "Sean has told me so much about you." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm. Her eye contact was a challenge. "Welcome to our home," I said, my own smile feeling like a mask, and the performance began. The long, slow, agonizing march to the moment when she would finally drop the act, and Sean would show me exactly who he had become. The first course was just as awful as I'd feared. Michelle held court. She dominated every second of the conversation. Her laugh was too loud. Her hand kept finding reasons to touch Sean's arm, and her stories, they were all, "Remember when, Sean? Remember that time in the North End, Sean? Remember that professor at BC, Sean?" Inside jokes, shared histories, all designed to make me feel like a stranger at my own table. I just smiled. I nodded. I refilled wine glasses. And I watched my husband. I watched him transform into a version of himself I hadn't seen in a decade. He was animated. He was engaged. He was finishing her sentences. His entire body was angled toward her, as if a magnetic force was pulling him away from me. By the time I cleared the salad plates, I knew this wasn't a catch-up. This wasn't maturity. This was an audition, and I was the one being judged. We had just finished the short ribs when Michelle set her fork down. It was so deliberate, so precise. The gesture was pure theater. She had been waiting for this exact moment. The whole mood in the room shifted. I could feel the air pressure drop. She looked at Sean, and her face melted into that fake sympathy mask again, head tilted, a sad little pout. "Sean," she said, her voice dropping, "I've been thinking about what you told me. About, your desire for children." My hands froze on my wineglass. What he told me. He had been talking to her about this, about our deepest, most private pain. The grief he told me he was at peace with. The future he told me he didn't need. We hadn't really talked about it in years, not since that day in the clinic parking lot. He said he was fine. He said he just wanted me. He lied. He had been feeding our pain to her, piece by piece, painting me as the broken wife, the obstacle. Michelle's voice got even softer, more intimate, as if she and Sean were the only two people in the room. "I've been thinking about your situation," she said, "about what you're missing out on, and what I might be able to offer. That she can't." And then she said it, the line she had rehearsed, the kill shot. "I can give you a baby if you want, Sean, because your wife isn't capable of it." She said it so casually, like she was offering to pick up his dry cleaning. Her hand snaked across the table again. It landed on his arm, a gesture of comfort, solidarity, ownership. The silence that followed was so loud it hurt my ears. It felt like being pushed underwater into ice. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would break a rib. I waited for Sean to explode, to tell her to get the hell out of our house, to defend me, to show 1 ounce of loyalty. He didn't. He just turned and looked at me with that same damn blank, curious, expectant look. He was waiting to see what I would do, waiting to see if I'd make a scene, waiting to see if I'd just swallow it, like I'd been swallowing every other little betrayal for the last 6 months. And in that moment, I saw everything. The late nights, the secret texts, the new clothes, the way he smiled at his phone. It wasn't a midlife crisis. It was an affair, an emotional and, for all I knew, physical affair that had been growing right under my nose, and I had been too stupid and too scared to see it. Michelle was still touching his arm. She was watching me, a tiny, satisfied smirk playing on her lips. She was waiting for the explosion. She wanted the tears. She wanted the screaming. She wanted me to prove I was the hysterical, inadequate wife she'd been painting me as, the woman who couldn't give her husband what he deserved. I could have done it. I could have thrown that $200 Cabernet right in her smug face. I could have flipped the table. I could have screamed at Sean until my throat was raw, but something else took over, something cold and quiet and powerful. I looked at her smirk. I looked at his hand, still resting under hers. I looked at his weak, waiting face, and I understood. Losing my cool was giving them the win. It would prove her right. It would give him the excuse he needed. It would let him rewrite our 14 years, casting me as the crazy, bitter wife who drove him away. No, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. So I smiled. Not a nice smile. A smile that came from a place so cold and deep, I didn't even know it existed inside me. I locked eyes with my husband, and in a voice that was perfectly calm, perfectly steady, I said it. "Follow your heart." Her smirk faltered. This wasn't the reaction she'd planned for. She wanted a fight. I gave her nothing. Sean looked relieved, and that one expression told me everything. It confirmed he was already gone. He heard my words as permission. He heard, "Follow your heart," as, "It's okay, go be with her." They both thought I was surrendering. They had no idea I had just declared war. I wasn't giving him permission. I was giving him the rope. And I was making damn sure I had a witness to him taking it. They thought they were winning. They had no idea I was about to burn their entire world to the ground. What I did next. It takes a level of cold, calculated strength. Do you have that in you, or do you just let people walk all over you hoping they'll eventually stop? Let me be real. Hope is not a strategy. Prove to yourself right now that you're a fighter. Subscribe to this channel. It's the first step to sharpening your spine. If you're not subscribing, I genuinely want to know why. Are you comfortable being a doormat? Are you okay with people treating you like this? Go to the comments and explain yourself. I'm reading them. Michelle, looking confused for the first time all night, finally pulled her hand back. She tried to recover. "Well, dessert?" she chirped, as if she hadn't just detonated a bomb. "Coffee?" Sean, still looking dazed, started to get up. "You know what?" I said, my voice still perfectly light. "I have a sudden, splitting headache." It wasn't even a full lie. My head was pounding, but not from pain. It was from pure, unadulterated rage and the adrenaline of a plan that was already forming in my mind. "You two, please. Enjoy dessert. I'm just going to go lie down." Sean started to protest. "Oh, Janie, are you—" He was at least pretending to be concerned. But Michelle, God, she was something else. She touched his arm again. "Let her rest, Sean," she said, her voice all low and soothing. "She probably just needs some space to process." The absolute audacity, making decisions about me in my house. I almost snapped, but I just smiled, turned, and walked upstairs. I didn't run. I made my steps even, measured. As I reached the landing, I heard their voices start up again, lower this time, conspiratorial. They were probably dissecting my reaction. Was she serious? Is she going to lose it later? Oh, they were about to find out what losing it really looked like. I closed our bedroom door. I locked it. And only then, in the dark, did I let my hands shake. The mask dropped. The adrenaline hit me like a truck, and my knees went weak. I sat on the edge of the bed we shared, listening to their muffled voices, to her laugh drifting up from my dining room. That sound. It was like nails on a chalkboard. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over my contacts. This was it. This was the point of no return. Once I made this call, there was no going back, no working it out, no marriage counseling. Then I thought of Sean's face, that look, that curious, empty look when his wife had just been humiliated. My thumb pressed down. Denzel Moore, attorney at law. Denzel answered on the second ring, his voice crisp and alert even at 10 p.m. Denzel wasn't just a lawyer, he was a shark, a pit bull in a Xenia suit. And he was my lawyer, on retainer for my firm, but he also handled complex divorces. Denzel, I said, my voice low and steady, all the shaking gone. It's Jane. I need to activate the scorched earth plan. How soon can we meet? I told him everything. Clinical, detailed, the dinner, the proposition, Sean's non-reaction, the 6 months of suspicious texts and late nights. I had been blind, but I wasn't stupid. I had noticed. I just hadn't admitted it. Denzel listened, not interrupting once. When I finished, there was a long pause. Jane, he said, his voice deadly serious, you understand what scorched earth entails. This isn't a negotiation. This is a surgical extraction. We're not just ending the marriage. We're protecting your assets and exposing his liabilities. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back wasn't the one who had been lighting candles a few hours ago. Her eyes were hard. That woman was gone. She'd been burned away, right there at the dinner table. Yes, I said. That is exactly what I want. Monday morning, 8 a.m., my office, he said. And Jane, this weekend, you are the perfect, loving wife. Do you understand? Do not tip your hand. Act normal. Give him no reason to suspect a thing, and document everything. Text messages, emails, bank statements. Go. We hung up. I sat there for another minute. Then I got to work. I went to his iPad. He always left it unlocked. I opened his messages, and there it was, a whole thread with Michelle. I scrolled and scrolled. It wasn't just coffee. It was planning. Sean, she has no idea. She still thinks we're solid. Michelle, she's living in a fantasy, baby. You deserve to be happy. You deserve a real family. Sean, I know. The dinner is Friday. After that, we need to talk, for real. My blood ran cold. This was premeditated. The dinner was the kickoff. I screenshotted everything. I photographed receipts I found in his desk drawer, jewelry, a classic diamond tennis bracelet. Not for me. I photographed our joint bank account statements, our investment portfolios. I documented every single financial contribution I had made, my inheritance from my grandmother that had been the down payment on this house. I heard the front door open and close, her voice saying goodnight. I moved to the window, and I watched. The porch light lit them up. He had his hand on the small of her back again. She turned, stood on her toes, and, oh, not a kiss, not quite. But she put her hand on his chest, her fingers lingering, and whispered something that made him smile. That unguarded, happy smile, the one he used to give me. I photographed that too, grainy through the window, but clear enough. Evidence. When Sean came back inside, I was downstairs, loading the dishwasher. My back was to him. I kept my hand steady as I rinsed a plate. The perfect, accommodating wife. Hey, he said, his voice tentative. You okay? I turned. I gave him that same, calm, empty smile. Yeah, just tired. Hosting is a lot, you know? I even managed a little laugh. Want to watch a movie? Something mindless. The relief that washed over his face. It was disgusting. He'd been bracing for a fight, for tears, for the drama. My calmness threw him. He had no idea what to do with it. Good. I wanted him off balance. I wanted him confused, Confused men get careless. We sat on the couch. He put on some stupid comedy. He kept checking his phone, smiling at the screen. I knew exactly who it was. He reached over and took my hand. I let him. I laced my fingers with his. And as I sat there, watching the movie, I was mentally cataloging our assets, running timelines, and planning my escape. Saturday morning, I was up before dawn. My body was electric with adrenaline. Denzel's words, "Act normal." I would give him the performance of his life. I went downstairs. I made coffee, and I started making Boston cream pie pancakes, his absolute favorite, the ones I only made on his birthday. I was humming. When he came down, his jaw nearly hit the floor. He looked so surprised and so pleased. "Wow, Janie, pancakes? What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I chirped. "Just felt like it. You've been working so hard." I served him. I smiled. I asked about his day. I played the part of the devoted, slightly clueless, but ultimately forgiving wife. He ate it up, literally. He said he was meeting his buddy Jason at the gym. "Take your time," I said. "Enjoy your Saturday." The second his Tesla pulled out of the driveway, I was in motion. First stop, Bank of America. I opened a new checking and savings account, in my name only. Then I transferred exactly 50% of our joint savings. Not a penny more. Nothing that would trigger an immediate fraud alert, but enough to secure my half. The bank teller asked if I needed help. I smiled and said I was just reorganizing our finances for tax season. I was so smooth, I almost believed myself. Second stop, a storage facility, not in Newton, one way out on Route 9 in a town he'd never even drive through. I paid for 3 months, in cash. Then, back to the house. For the next 4 hours, I was a ghost. I moved through our home, methodically packing. Not clothes, not furniture, things, my things. My grandmother's jewelry, the pieces she left to me, the artwork I had bought with my bonuses, before we were even married. Photo albums from my childhood, my college years, my life before him, my degree, my professional awards. Every box was another piece of my identity, reclaimed. I made 3 trips. My car was packed to the gills. I loaded it all into that storage unit. I felt zero guilt, only cold, hard, satisfying logic. I was securing my assets. When Sean got home that afternoon, whistling, smelling like his expensive gym, the house looked exactly the same. He didn't notice a thing. He didn't see the empty spaces in the back of the closet or the missing boxes from the attic. He just saw his happy, pancake-making wife. And the knowledge of what I'd done, right under his nose, felt like a shield. Sunday was more of the same, perfect domestic bliss. We went for a walk. We cooked dinner together. I was counting down the hours. That night he went to take a shower. He left his iPad on the nightstand. A message lit up the screen. It was her. Michelle. I picked it up. My hands weren't even shaking this time. Michelle. "So, how did she take it? Is she still processing?" Sean. "Better than I thought. She was calm. Almost too calm. But she's making pancakes, so I think she's fine." Michelle. "See? She knows it's over. She's relieved, too. Now we can start our timeline. I already booked a consult with the fertility doc for next month. Want me to add you to the appointment?" He was making fertility appointments with her. I photographed the screen. Click. More evidence for Denzel. I heard the shower turn off. I put the iPad back. Exactly as it was. I picked up my book. He came out, wrapped in a towel. He kissed my forehead. "Love you, Janie," he murmured. "Love you too," I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. He climbed into bed, our bed, and within 10 minutes, he was fast asleep, breathing deeply beside me. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the man who was actively planning to replace me, sleeping like a baby. Monday was coming. We all know someone who has been betrayed. We all know someone who deserves justice. By subscribing to this channel, you're not just watching stories. You're joining a community that stands up against liars and manipulators. It costs you nothing. 0. If you can't even click a free button to be a part of that, what does that say about you? I'm serious. I'm curious. If you're one of the people who won't subscribe, explain your reasoning in the comments. I'll wait. Monday morning. The alarm went off, but I was already awake. I had been for hours. Sean was still dead asleep beside me, oblivious. This was the last time he would ever wake up in this house, in this life. I slipped out of bed. I went through my routine like a robot, Shower, skincare. I put on my armor, a navy blue power suit, the one tailored just for me, the one I wore when I was about to close $1 million deal. I did my makeup, extra careful, a mask of pure, unshakable confidence. The woman in the mirror looked formidable. She looked like she ate men like Sean for breakfast. Good. That's who I needed to be. Sean was in the kitchen, scrolling on his phone, sipping his coffee. He barely looked up. "Morning," he mumbled, probably texting her, planning their future from my kitchen table. "Morning," I said, all breezy. "Got a big client meeting downtown." Busy day here too," he said, still staring at his screen. I walked over. I leaned down, and I kissed him goodbye. A quick, dry press of lips. It felt like kissing a corpse. "Have a good day," I said. He smiled, finally looking up, that same clueless, unsuspecting smile. He had no idea he'd never see me again, not the me he thought he knew. The drive to Denzel's office downtown was surreal. The city was just waking up. People grabbing coffee, commuting, living their normal Monday. My entire world was about to explode. I parked in the garage, my heels clicking on the concrete. I rode the elevator to the 30th floor. Denzel was waiting in his conference room. The table was covered in documents, battle plans. "He worked all weekend," he said, not even bothering with hello. "You're lucky, Jane. Your case is clean. And your contributions are significant." He laid it out. The divorce petition. It was a masterpiece. It detailed everything. The emotional affair, backed by the text threads. The financial breakdown, proving my inheritance paid for the house and my bonuses paid for the renovations. It painted a crystal clear picture. I wasn't just a wife. I was the primary investor. But the real work of art was the restraining order. "This is the key," Denzel said. "Emotional cruelty is tough to prove, but this dinner party was a public, calculated act of humiliation. They exploited your known infertility. That's not just inappropriate, that's intentional infliction of emotional distress. And his failure to defend you? That's complicity. This order will get him out of the house, today." I signed every page. My hand was rock steady, all the fear, all the hurt. It had crystallized into something hard and sharp. Determination. "Here's the timeline," Denzel said, looking at his watch. "We file electronically at noon. At 2:30 p.m., a process server will walk into your husband's office, right in the middle of his trading floor. He'll be served in front of every single one of his colleagues. He won't be able to yell. He won't be able to run. He won't be able to come home and confront you, because the restraining order will be active immediately. The first thing he will experience is the same public humiliation he so calmly watched you endure." I left Denzel's office at 10 a.m. I went to a coffee shop in the Back Bay, and I waited. At 12 o'clock p.m., Denzel texted, "Filed." At 2:15 p.m., "Server is in position." And at 2:31 p.m., my phone exploded. Sean. Sean. Mobile. Sean. Work. It rang and rang and rang. I just watched it buzz on the table. I pictured his face, the confusion, the shock, the pure, pants-wetting panic as he read those documents, as he realized he was locked out of his home, his bank accounts, and his life. After the 5th call, I blocked his number. Seconds later, Michelle Evans. She actually called me. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was a shriek. "Jane, what the hell did you do? You can't do this. Sean is a mess. You're manipulating him. You are a cruel, vindictive, but..." I blocked her number too. At 3 o'clock p.m., Denzel called. He sounded amused. "Well, that was fast. His attorney's already on the line, a guy named Richard. He's flustered, screaming about no warning. Apparently, Sean is not having a good day. Don't worry, I've got this. Go home, Jane. The house is yours." I drove home. Slowly. When I pulled into my driveway, it looked the same. But as I walked to the front door, I saw the small, discreet sticker from the security company. The locksmith Denzel had arranged had already been there. My old key didn't work. I used the new one he'd had messengered to the coffee shop. Click. I walked inside. The silence was different. It wasn't lonely. It was clean. It was peace. In the garage, just like I'd asked, were boxes. Denzel's team had come in while I was waiting and packed all of Sean's essential belongings. His clothes, his toiletries, his laptop, everything he legally, exclusively owned. He could come get them with a police escort tomorrow. Everything else? The furniture I bought, the art I chose, the life I had funded, it all stayed. It was all mine. I walked through the rooms, my house, and I felt light. I poured a glass of wine, a new bottle, and stood at the kitchen window. Then the flying monkeys started. My phone buzzed. His mother, Mary, crying. A voicemail about how I was destroying her son over a misunderstanding. His best friend, Jason. A text. Hey Jane, this is crazy. Can't we all just talk like adults? You're overreacting. His sister. A long, sanctimonious email about forgiveness and not throwing away 14 years. They all had his side of the story. The crazy, vindictive Jane narrative he was already spinning. Not one of them. Not one asked what he had done. Not one asked my side. I didn't reply. I forwarded every single message to Denzel. Documentation of harassment, he called it. I turned off my phone. I went upstairs to my bedroom. And for the first time in over a year, I slept. A deep, dreamless, incredible sleep. This is getting intense, and it makes you think, do you really know who your partner is? Do you know who your friends are? This channel is your armor. It's your training. Subscribing is how you sharpen your instincts so you can see the red flags before they're sitting at your dinner table. You can click away, you can leave, and just hope for the best. Or you can subscribe and learn to protect yourself. If you're really choosing to leave right now, I have to know why. Why would you rather stay vulnerable? Go to the comments and tell me. I need to understand. That feeling of peace lasted exactly 3 hours into Tuesday morning. The doorbell rang. Not a polite ding-dong. It was an angry, insistent buzz, buzz, buzz. I checked the new security camera feed on my phone. It was my younger sister, Queen. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I'd texted her right after the dinner, in a panic. You won't believe what just happened. Denzel had used those texts as contemporaneous evidence of my distress, but I hadn't told her I'd actually filed. I opened the door, and she practically fell inside. Jane, oh my God, I have to tell you something. I am so sorry. I should have said something weeks ago. She was rambling, on the verge of tears. Queen, slow down. What's wrong? 6 weeks ago, she rushed out. I was having lunch in the North End, at this little sidewalk cafe, and I saw them. Saw who? Sean and Michelle. They were together, at a table. And Jane, it wasn't a work meeting. They were sitting so close, leaning in. He was laughing. That big, unguarded laugh, and she was touching his arm. I told myself I was crazy, that it was innocent, that you must have known. And then, she said, her voice dropping, 2 weeks ago, I saw them again, at a bar in the seaport, a work thing for me, and this time, I took a picture. I don't know why, it just felt wrong. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone. She showed me. It wasn't just wrong. It was everything. It was a photo of them, huddled at a dark corner table. Michelle's hand was on Sean's face. Her fingers were tangled in his hair at his temple. And he was, leaning into her touch. His eyes were closed. He looked peaceful, adoring. It was a level of intimacy, a casual tenderness, that he hadn't shown me in years. Seeing the texts was one thing. This visual proof, it was a punch to the gut. I'm so sorry, Jane, Queen was crying now. I didn't want to be the one. I didn't want to break your heart. I hugged her. It's not your fault, I said, my voice hard. I wasn't ready to see it. Even if you'd shown me, I would have made an excuse. I needed to see it for myself. Then I took her phone. Send this to me, right now. She sent it. I immediately forwarded it to Denzel. Subject, for the pile. This wasn't just an emotional affair anymore. This was proof. Hard, photographic proof. Queen left, and I was alone with the new, burning rage from that photo. And that's when the next wave arrived. Doorbell again. This time I knew who it was. George and Mary, Sean's parents. They were on my porch, looking like they were ready for war. I opened the door. I did not invite them in. I just stood there, blocking the doorway. Jane, what is the meaning of this? George started, his voice already booming. You can't just throw our son out of his own home. Mary was already crying. How could you do this?" she wailed. "Over a misunderstanding? He told us she was just trying to help you. He told us he just wants a family. It's not his fault you can't—" I laughed, a cold, sharp, ugly sound that shut them both up. "That I can't?" I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Let's be very clear, Mary. I'm the one with the endometriosis. I'm the one who went through surgeries. I'm the one who shot my body full of hormones for 2 years, and I'm the one who his ex-girlfriend humiliated at my dinner table using my medical history as a weapon, and your son just sat there and watched." "He said it wasn't like that," George bellowed. "He said you're twisting it, that he's just friends with her." "Friends?" I said. I pulled out my phone. "You want to see friends?" I showed them the texts, the ones from his iPad. "She's living in a fantasy, baby." "Now we can start our timeline." Their faces. George went white. Mary put her hand over her mouth, a small, wounded sound escaping. "And here," I said, swiping to the photo from Queen, "here's a picture of your son and his friend 2 weeks ago." I held the phone up. They both stared at the image, at Michelle's hand on their son's face. The fight just drained out of them. They looked old and defeated. They left without another word. That night, Mary called me. Her voice was small, broken. "Jane, I am so sorry," she whispered. We had no idea. He told us you were just angry. We didn't know." "I know," I said, my voice flat. "He's very good at telling stories. Is there anything we can do?" "Yes," I said. "You can direct your disappointment at your son, not at me." I hung up. The next few weeks were a blur of legal hell. Work was a nightmare. Sean and I worked in adjacent industries. We knew the same people. The gossip spread like wildfire. My colleague, Derek, pulled me aside by the coffee machine. "Hey, Jane, I heard about you and Sean. Man, that's rough, but a restraining order? Isn't that a little extreme? All marriages have rough patches." I just looked him in the eye. "Derek, did Sean mention he's been having an affair?" The color drained from his face. "Oh, he just said he reconnected with an old friend." "Right," I said, and walked away. Sean had been crafting his narrative for months, painting me as difficult, painting her as just a friend, laying the groundwork so that when the bomb went off, I looked like the crazy one. It was brilliant in a sick, sociopathic way. The strain was unreal. I was trying to hold together million-dollar accounts at work while my private life was being dissected in the break room. I started eating at my desk. I was exhausted, not from the work, from the performance, from pretending I was fine. Then Denzel called. "The hearing for the permanent restraining order is next week. Sean is fighting it. His lawyer filed a counterpetition. It's a piece of work. I'm sending it over." I opened the file, I read it, and I had to sit down. Sean's official, legal version of the story, I had completely overreacted to a harmless dinner conversation. Michelle's offer was, admittedly awkward, but ultimately compassionate and misunderstood. He had been shocked by my coldness. My follow your heart line, he had interpreted that as my blessing to explore options for our future family. They were trying to legally gaslight me. They were trying to tell a judge that I was the unhinged one for not appreciating another woman offering to be a surrogate at a dinner party. The rage that filled me was so pure, so hot, it burned away the last bit of exhaustion. "Denzel," I said, calling him back. "He signed his name to this. He's lying in a legal document." "I know," Denzel said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "And he just handed us the win. They're relying on he said, she said. We have receipts." But the final nail in Sean's coffin didn't come from me. It came from an unknown number, 2 days before the hearing. "Is this Jane?" a woman's voice asked. "Who is this?" "My name is Veronica Hartley. I used to be Michelle Evans's best friend. I heard what she did to you, and I need to tell you this is not the first time. This is her move." I sat down. "Go on." "In college," Veronica said, "she targeted our friend's boyfriend, befriended the girlfriend first, got all the dirt on their relationship. Then she systematically seduced him, positioning herself as the supportive friend who really understood him. By the time the girlfriend figured it out, he had already left her for Michelle. That relationship lasted 3 months, until Michelle got bored. She's a predator, Jane. She gets off on destroying things. She's done this at least 4 times that I know of. Would you, I asked, my heart pounding, be willing to sign a sworn affidavit to that effect? Honey, Veronica said, I'll testify in person. I connected her with Denzel. The trap was set. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. I just walked through my house. My house. I stood in the dining room replaying that night over and over. I was terrified. What if the judge didn't see it? What if they believed Sean's lies? I got to the courthouse at 8 a.m., an hour early. I was back in my navy blue armor. Sean was already there. He looked awful. His suit was rumpled. He had dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he'd been living in a motel, which he had. Our eyes met. He looked away. Fast. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Judge Mendez, walked in. Denzel presented our case first. He was methodical. He laid out the timeline, the reconnection, the secret texts, the photo, the dinner, the humiliation, the lies, and the counter-petition. He put the screenshots of the texts up on the monitor. She's living in a fantasy, baby. I already booked a consult with the fertility doc. I watched Sean's face. He was shrinking in his chair. His lawyer looked sick. He'd clearly never seen these. Then I testified. I told the truth. I described the dinner. I described my medical history, my voice never wavering. I described his non-reaction. Sean's lawyer, Richard, tried to come at me. Mrs. Miller, isn't it true you're just vindictive? That you're punishing your husband? Mr. Brennan, I said, looking right at him, I am protecting myself. A woman who was publicly humiliated about her infertility by her husband's mistress has a right to feel unsafe, don't you think? He had no answer. Then Sean testified. It was pathetic. He stumbled. He lied. He said the texts were taken out of context. He said he was just venting to a friend. Judge Mendez cut him off. Mr. Miller, she said, why didn't you defend your wife? I was shocked, he stammered. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to make a scene. So your solution, the judge said, was to let your wife absorb the entire cruel public blow while you did nothing? He had no answer, and just when I thought it couldn't get worse for him, the courtroom doors opened and she walked in. Michelle, she was dressed for a club, not a courtroom, a tight dress, high heels. She looked defiant. She sat in the back, glaring at me. Sean saw her, and his face, it was pure panic, and she just couldn't help herself. In the middle of Denzel's closing argument, she stood up. This is ridiculous, she shouted. She's punishing him because he wants a family. She's weaponizing her infertility to play the victim. I was just trying to help. The whole courtroom went silent. Judge Mendez's gavel came down so hard I thought the wood would crack. Ma'am, the judge said, her voice dropping to a terrifying calm, you will sit down and be silent, or I will have you removed for contempt. But she's bailiff, the judge yelled. 2 large bailiffs started moving toward her. Michelle's face went from defiant to terrified. They grabbed her by the arms and started marching her out of the courtroom as she was still trying to explain. I just love him. She's the crazy one. I looked at Sean. His eyes were closed. His head was in his hands. He knew. It was over. His mistress, in her infinite stupidity, had just confirmed everything. She'd just proven to a judge in real time exactly how unhinged and manipulative she was. Denzel just smiled at me. A tiny, perfect smile. Judge Mendez came back after a 10-minute recess. She didn't waste time. Restraining order granted for 1 year, and that order is extended to include Ms. Evans. Exclusive use of the marital home is granted to Mrs. Miller. A preliminary asset division will favor Mrs. Miller, given the documented proof of her initial investment in the home and Mr. Miller's pattern of deception. She looked right at Sean. Mr. Miller, this court is not here to rule on your marriage, but it is here to rule on decency, and your behavior and that of Ms. Evans has been indecent. You failed your wife. The evidence is overwhelming. This hearing is over. I walked out of that courtroom, and I could breathe. For the first time in 6 months, I could actually fully breathe. Did you feel that? That release? That is the feeling of justice. Right now, thousands of people are subscribing. They're joining this family. They're proving they stand for strength and for taking back your power, and you're still just watching. Don't be the person who just takes. Don't be a passive observer. Be a part of this. Hit that subscribe button. It's one simple click to show what you stand for. If you still refuse, you must have a powerful reason. I want to hear it. Go to the comments and tell me exactly why you won't join us. I'm reading every single word. The months that followed were just negotiations. But I held all the cards. Denzel had him pinned. Sean tried. Oh, he tried. He sent letters to Denzel's office, apologies, excuses. I never meant to hurt you. Michelle manipulated me. It was all a fantasy. It was all BS. I had the texts. He was a willing, active participant. The final settlement was a bloodbath. I got the house, outright. I got 70% of our joint assets, based on Denzel's proof of my financial contributions. I kept my dignity. Sean left with his clothes, his car, his consulting fees from the projects Michelle got him, and a reputation in Boston's financial world that was absolutely, positively toxic. I heard, through the grapevine, that he and Michelle actually tried to make a go of it. Shocker. It lasted about 6 weeks. Turns out when the fantasy has to deal with real life, like finding an apartment you can afford after your ex-wife takes most of your money, it's not so sexy. The thrill of the forbidden was the only thing holding them together. Once it was allowed, it just fell apart. As for me, I rebuilt. I reconnected with my sister Queen. I reconnected with my old college friends, the ones I'd let drift away because Sean always thought they were too loud. I redecorated. I painted the dining room, a deep, gorgeous, happy blue. I bought a new table. I host dinner parties there now, real ones, with loud laughter and good friends, and no one is getting humiliated. Sometimes I think about that night, and you know what? Michelle thought she was offering Sean a baby, but what she really did was give me my life back. She gave me the perfect, crystal clear, undeniable proof that the man I was married to was a weak, spineless coward. Sean thought my follow your heart was permission. He thought it was surrender. It wasn't. It was a starting pistol. He traded 14 years of a real, if imperfect, partnership for a cheap fantasy. A fantasy that blew up in his face the second it met reality. I learned, follow your heart is pretty good advice, but only if your heart is smart enough to call a lawyer first. He followed his. And it cost him everything. I followed mine, and it led me straight to freedom.